Good morning, everybody. What's going on? What's going on? This is Leonard Miles, aka 2 Degrees in the CDL. You already know how we do. We come live with the news, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is a ugly, and a bad, and a tragic situation that we're in right now. A port container ship, crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. I'm gonna get right into it. I had actually my mother had contacted me this morning to see if I had to go up that way, to Baltimore. I informed her that I didn't. I'm down here in Virginia, but a lot of truckers, you're gonna have to reroute in a different way. I'll get into the article, but everybody's gonna have to reroute in a whole different way. They're looking for people as well. Some cars fell in, so prayers at the search and rescue. It's successful. Man, it's a lot. It's a lot to really, digest, early this morning. But let's go ahead and get into it. Baltimore Bridge collapse disrupts traffic, port operations at the ship collision. A large section of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore collapsed early Tuesday morning after a container ship collided with it. The incident sent vehicles into the water, initiated a large-scale search and rescue operation, and has serious implications for one of the busiest ports on the U.S. East Coast. The Port of Baltimore announced at approximately 8 a.m. Eastern that it was closed for inbound and outbound vessel traffic. It did say that truck operations at terminals inside the port would continue. But the bridge collapse effectively sets up a wall between the port and Chesapeake Bay. There does not appear to be any other inbound or outbound way between the port and shipping lanes, raising the question of how long this key terminal will be closed. The Maryland Transportation Authority is advising against the use of Interstate 695, a key route for Baltimore's commuters and freight movement following the collapse. The bridge plays a vital role in commercial shipping the bridge plays a vital role in commercial shipping access to the Port of Baltimore, a major hub for autos, light trucks, and various bulk goods. It is the easternmost way of getting across the Port of Baltimore. The actual waterway the bridge collapsed into is the Patapsco River, which ultimately flows into Chesapeake Bay and near its end forms the boundaries of the Port of Baltimore. Alternate routes for trucks that bypass the Key Bridge are a tunnel on Interstate 895 under the Baltimore Harbor, a tunnel on Interstate 95 under the harbor, or Interstate 695 on the west side of Baltimore. The bridge is part of the Interstate 695, the Baltimore Loop, on the east side of the city. The Maryland Transportation Authority on its X feed noted that vehicles transporting hazardous materials may not use either the I-95, the Fort McHenry, or I-895 Baltimore Harbor tunnels. To get around Baltimore, they'll need to use I-695 on the western side of the city. Additionally, MDTA said on X that vehicles in excess of 13 feet 6 inches in height or 8 feet in width are prohibited from using the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel on I-895. For the Fort McHenry Tunnel, which is part of I-95 through the heart of Baltimore, the limits are 14 feet 6 inches in height and 11 feet in width. Paul Wheatfield, Maryland's Transportation Secretary, said the water where the bridge was struck is about 50 feet deep, complicating search and rescue operations. The U.S. Coast Guard and dive teams are currently searching for survivors, with Baltimore's fire chief noting the additional challenges posed by the water's current. Initial reports indicate possible multiple casualties. The effort to locate survivors is critical, with water temperatures around 47 degrees Fahrenheit adding to the urgency. Officials say there is no indication of foul play. Let me see. The Dolly, the Singapore flag ship involved, was carrying around 4,900 containers at the time of the collision. It hit the bridge while under pilotage, disrupting not just the vessel's journey from the U.S. to Sri Lanka, but also the operations at the port and the flow of traffic on surrounding roadways. News reports say the Dolly was chartered by Messerk, but managed by the Synergy Group. Reports also say the ship was owned by Singapore's Grace Ocean. The statement published by the Synergy Group about the crash said there were no casualties on the ship and no fuel was spilled. Maryland Governor Wes Moore has declared a state of emergency and is seeking federal assistance. The bridge's collapse not only affects local communities, but also poses challenges to freight transportation, especially as the Easter holiday weekend approaches. The Port of Baltimore, known for handling a large volume of imports and exports, faces immediate operational hurdles. Authorities are focused on rescue operations and determining the full extent of the disruption to the commerce and traffic. One social media observation about the crash is that in terms of impact on logistics, the West Coast ports, battered by a pandemic-driven movement toward East Coast ports, now face the prospect of another development that suddenly makes Long Beach and Los Angeles look more attractive. Avoiding East Coast ports to skip the limits on a drought-stricken Panama Canal already were seen as helping the West Coast ports. Add to that any avoidance of the East Coast as a knock-on effect from the threat to shipping in the Red Sea and Suez Canal, and now one of the East Coast's biggest ports effectively has a steel blockage that is likely to take months to remove. Judah Levine, head of research at Freightos, the international shipping transaction and payment platform, laid out the impact on shipping in an email to FreightWaves. With most of Baltimore's ports, terminals, and all of its container terminals behind the collapsed bridge, containerized exports at or planning to depart from Baltimore will either need to wait until the waterway reopens or be rerouted by truck or rail to alternate ports, which could include Philadelphia, or more likely the more major hubs like Norfolk or New York, New Jersey, he said. Exporters choosing these options could face increased trucking and rail rates if enough volumes are shifted to other ports. Levine said 7 container vessels are scheduled to arrive in Baltimore between now and Saturday. Diversions could cause some congestion at alternative ports, meaning delays for importers, Levine said. But quarterly container volumes at Baltimore are only about 13% of those handled at the port of New York, New Jersey, he added. Baltimore imports should be able to be shifted to other ports without causing too much of a disruption. First and foremost, the fact that that it's going to be casualties that they're anticipating, man, it's so sad. I know a lot of stuff is going to come out about this, but definitely prayers up to the families of missing loved ones who went into the water, during the crash of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Definitely keep those family members uplifted in your prayers. It's a hard time, especially when they haven't found anybody yet. And the outcome is not a good outcome at all. To all my truckers out there, be safe. I'm sure that people traveling through that area, I'm sure your transportation managers and everything, they're going to give you a different route to take. Like I said before, they listed some routes that you can take, some routes that you can't take, depending on if you're toting hazardous materials or oversized loads. So just keep in mind, which way that you'll be traveling, and just be safe. Let's just be safe. There's a lot going on out here. Like I said, once again, prayers up to those family members. Like I said, hopefully, they can be found. And if not, like I said, just keep those families uplifted in your prayers. As always, I appreciate you all tuning in to me. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we on the road to 1K. And all my truckers, be safe and keep it in the middle of the road. And until next time, I'm out.